Have you ever looked in the mirror and just, seen a mashup of your family, but also someone completely new? Well, that whole puzzle is written in a code that's inside every single one of us. It's our DNA. Today, we're going to start cracking that genetic code. So let's just dive right in.
I mean, seriously, think about it for a sec. You might have your mom's eyes, maybe your dad's nose, but you're definitely not a perfect 50-50 copy of either of them. So what is actually going on there? How does this whole genetic lottery really work?
Well, the secret, of course, is hidden in your DNA. But it's not just random chaos. Nope. It's actually a system with a really clear set of rules for how traits get passed down. And once you get those rules, you can start to see this beautiful, elegant logic behind all that amazing variety.
To get things started, we got to go way back to the OG of genetics himself, Gregor Mendel. But we're not just talking about his basic pea plant experiments today. Oh no, we are going to level up and look at where his work got really interesting.
So Mendel got to thinking, what happens if you track two different traits at the exact same time? He called this a dihybrid cross. Like, what if you breed a plant that has round, yellow seeds with another one that has wrinkled, green seeds? What are those new plants going to look like? Okay, so to figure that out, we use this awesome tool called a Punnett square. Now, I know it looks a little complicated, but it's really just a way to map out all the possibilities. The letters you see on the top and on the side, those are the possible gene combos from each parent. And every little box inside shows a potential genetic outcome for their kid. And check it out, you don't just get the original parent types, you get brand new combinations, like round green seeds and wrinkled yellow ones. This is so important.
This whole discovery led Mendel to a massive breakthrough, what he called the law of independent assortment. To put it simply, it just means that inheriting the gene for round seeds has absolutely nothing to do with inheriting the gene for yellow color. They're sorted independently. This is what creates so much genetic variety. It's literally the reason why you and your siblings can look so different from each other.
All right, so pea plants are cool and all, but what about us? How can we actually use these rules to track traits through our own families? Let's take a look.
For humans, scientists use something called a genetic pedigree. Just think of it like a family tree, but it's super specialized to track one single trait, like freckles, or even a genetic disorder as it moves through the generations.
And to read one, all you need to know is the basic code. It's actually really simple. Circles are females, squares are males. If a shape is filled in, that person has the trait we're looking at. If it's empty, they don't. See? Easy, right? Now, using these pedigrees, we can start to figure out how different genetic conditions get passed along. And the two main ways this happens are through dominant and recessive patterns. Okay, let's break this down a bit. A recessive disorder, something like cystic fibrosis, only shows up if you get two copies of that altered gene. But for a dominant disorder, like Huntington's disease, you only need one copy. Now, here's the key trick for telling them apart on a pedigree. For a recessive trait, if two parents have it, all their kids will have it too. But for a dominant trait, two parents who don't have it can never have a kid who does. That's the dead giveaway.
Okay, time for a quick pop quiz just to see if you're with me. If a person has just one copy of a recessive gene, so they don't actually have the disorder themselves, but they could still pass it on, what do we call them? Let's see if you remember.
A carrier. That's it, exactly. They carry the gene without showing the trait. And understanding what carriers are is totally crucial for tracking how these conditions move through a family tree.
So we've got the basic rules down, right? But genetics kind of loves to throw in a few curveballs. Things aren't always just plain dominant or recessive.
First up, we have something called incomplete dominance. This happens when neither version or allele of a gene is totally dominant. So what happens? The result is a blend. The classic example is crossing a red flower with a white flower and getting all pink flowers. It's literally like mixing paint together. Next up, there's this idea of multiple alleles. So far, we've kind of been talking like genes only come in two flavors, right? Like a big Y and a little y. But for some traits, there can be 3 or more possible versions out in the world. And the perfect example of this is human blood type.
And this table just shows it perfectly. For our blood type, there are 3 alleles, A, B, and O. Now, A and B are both dominant over O. But here's the cool part. What happens if you get an A from one parent and a B from the other? Well, they're codominant, so you express both of them, and you get AB blood type. Pretty cool, right?
And finally, we have X-linked inheritance. This is for genes that are found on the X sex chromosome. Since males have an X and a Y, they only have one X chromosome. This means they're way more likely to be affected by recessive disorders on that chromosome, like colorblindness or hemophilia. because they don't have a second X that could potentially hide the trait.
Whoa, okay, that was a whirlwind tour of some pretty complicated stuff, but you made it. So let's do a quick fire round to make sure a couple of these key ideas really stick.
First one, what do we call that special family tree that lets us track a single trait through the generations?
Yes, a pedigree. Nice. You totally got it.
All right, last one. You've got this. What's it called when you cross red and white flowers and you get pink ones? That whole blending effect. What's the term?
Incomplete dominance. Perfect. See, these big ideas really start to click once you break them down. Great job.
So, from the independent shuffling of traits to the complicated dance of different genes, we've seen how just a few simple rules can create all the incredible diversity we see around us and inside us, which kind of leads to the last question. Now that you know a little more of the code, what do you think your own genetic story says about you? Thanks for cracking the code with me today.